All right, so we're here tonight to talk about blended learning in the elementary school classroom, and before we get started, I want to introduce myself because I know when you have a relationship with me, it's a little easier to kind of understand me and understand what I'm here for and why I'm here. All right, so first in my personal life, as you can see, I am married to my high school sweetheart, and we did both graduate from Georgia Southern, and we have a little 1-year-old. He just turned 1 yesterday, so he runs my life right now. And then we have 2 pups, our yellow lab Clyde, he's 11, so he's a little bit of a grumpy old man, and we just got Gus here, who also runs our household. Gus and Townsend keep us busy, but in my career I teach 3rd grade, and this is my 5th year. I'm from Columbia County, which is kind of outside of Augusta, so it's like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours from here. I'm also a graduate student in the iTech program, so this is my final semester of my master's program, unless I get a wild hair to come back and do some more. But like I said, I'm a 3rd grade teacher, and at my school I'm on our digital learning team. I'm on the district math committee that's new this year. A lot of fun looking at those math standards, and they are changing next year, so really great. And then also I do a lot of professional development on classroom management. So, yeah, that's better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's helpful.
Is that too dark?
I think that might be a smidge too dark.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good.
So at the end, if you have any questions for me about classroom management, I'm pretty knowledgeable in that. I give a lot of workshops on that one. All right, so I'm not going to read these to you word for word because you know how to read, and I'm going to send this whole thing out to you along with a bunch of other resources about blended learning. But basically, I just want you to know what blended learning is and what it looks like in your classroom, in your lesson plans. That's a big part, is planning for it. And then just being able to state your expectations to your students, which is part of classroom management as well. All right, so first, what blended learning is. So a lot of questions I get from my students is, Miss Campbell, I don't know my password, or Miss Campbell, my screen flipped upside down. That happened one time, and I'm like, how did you even make it flip upside down? They had to click like 3 different keys at one time. We had to YouTube it to get it back. It was a whole lot of fun. So I think a lot of hesitations teachers have are like, oh, I just don't know how to do it. It's not something I'm familiar with. So tonight we're going to try to be comfortable with it. So some concerns when I sent you guys that survey, these were the 4 biggest that I saw when I looked at it. And the first one was classroom management, so keeping your students on task when they're on computers. I know that's hard because they like to go to whatever website they want to go to that day. Cool math is a big one for mine. They'll sneak on to cool math and play games. Another one is just your student technology issues. So having those logins, how do I train my students to get on their computer, especially when they're on that kindergarten or 1st grade level. It's a little easier in the upper grades for some of them. They're accustomed to it. Planning for technology, and then how do you differentiate with technology? Like I was saying earlier to some of you, I have 9 students with IEPs in my classroom out of 21. That's almost half of my kids. So I cannot give my students that struggle more the same activity that I'm giving my high students. I have to figure out how can I plan for both of them while also keeping them engaged. All right, so the first concern that I saw a lot of you had were they're not staying on their assignments when they're on their computer, or they're exiting out, or they're not completing it all the way because they're not familiar with. First, with classroom management, it is so important before you do any type of activity, even a worksheet, to just restate your expectations. Even if you think they know it, you have to say, my expectation right now is that you are staying on this website and that you're staying quietly working. This is when I bring in a lot of my PBIS at our school. Our school is huge on using our PBIS language. It's called 4 Ps at our school. And the 2 main ones are prepared and polite. So I like to say prepared is staying on your computer. Polite is being quiet so that you and your neighbor can both work at the same time. And by stating those expectations, they should know what your expectations are so that if they are not following that, you can go up to them later and say, are you being polite right now? And have them restate them back to you. All right. And then also, I love Impero. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it before. It's kind of like an app on your computer that your technology person at your school can download, and it lets you see all your kids' computers at one time. So I can be sitting at my small group table with my computer and just looking at their screens, and it'll have little icons for each kid. Also, what's really neat is if they type a word that's inappropriate, it immediately sends me an email, even if they backspace it. So I can pull up their screen and takes a screenshot and be like, did you type this word? And they're like, no, I didn't do that. I'm like, well, So on your screen, isn't this your name? And then they're normally able to tell me.
Does that work on college campuses?
You should ask your technology person. All right, with that, your student technology issues, sometimes your kids will get frustrated, or you will get frustrated when you're like, oh, let's try this fun interactive game, but all of a sudden nobody can log in, and it shows errors and things like that. My biggest advice to you is you've got to take time to train your students. Just like you would train them to do anything else, train them how to follow your expectations, you have to take time in the beginning. So for example, we use Google Classroom a lot, like every single day in my classroom. And it's an expectation for our school, but coming from second grade, they had never used it. So I can't just expect them to know how to do it. So that first week or two of school, we're taking little bits by bits, even if it's 10 minutes a day. Like, okay, let's get on Google Classroom today, we're learning how to log in. So by the end of the year, like now, they can do it automatically by themselves. And that's really beneficial when we have like digital learning days, which are new this year. A lot of times the parents will call me and say, my kid doesn't know how to log in. And I'm like, oh yes they do. Hand them the computer and normally they can get in a lot faster. So taking that time to train them in the beginning is gonna help you a lot in the end, even if it's super time consuming in the beginning. And then hold students accountable. Make them learn their passwords and logins. It's okay for you to take their computer away if they're not following those expectations. And if they say, well, I can't log in. I have one student, he has a QR code, he's lost it 3 times. I'm like, buddy, I'm not printing you another one, so we're just gonna practice later. And he hates sitting with me back in the class during specials or whenever to practice that password later. So he's known now, fingers crossed that it doesn't go missing this week, but he has his QR code. And you can use QR codes for a lot of things, a lot of different websites for them to log in. So just tape it to their folder or somewhere inside their desk. I wouldn't do it like on top of their desk. I have a lot of kids that like to log into each other's stuff if they find someone's quick card, and they'll go in and change their pictures. It's something as small as that. But just holding them accountable, that's a big part. And then it says create a Symbaloo. Have you guys used Symbaloo before? It's basically like the home screen on your phone. So like they can go in and click an app and they don't have to go directly to that website. It just immediately gets them on the website. So that's a big one, and then you could post it in your class. But I'm going to show you how to do that with Padlet later too. All right, planning is the biggest piece. And when I saw your comments, you're like, well, I don't know how to use differentiation in my planning for these students. And we're going to go through Padlet, which is an integration tool. Some of you may have used it before. And I'm going to talk to you about how to differentiate each one of those activities. So that's a little bit easier when you see examples that my students have actually done. Okay, and I use technology in all different parts of my lesson. So if I have a really long whole group lesson on fractions, I know I'm not keeping their attention for 20 minutes on fractions. It's just not happening. They're 8 years old. So I have to put little like quizzes or Kahoots in the middle so they know like, oh, it's coming up. I want to win on that quizzes. I need to pay attention right now. And that's a big piece that my admin expects. They don't want to walk in your class and see your kids bored. They really push, you need to break it up. So every 10 minutes or so, have them doing something else. And then you can use it as like a formative assessment too, to plan for the next day. Does that make sense? All right, so now we're gonna move on to Padlet, and you guys are gonna start using your technology too. So before we do that, Padlet is just a technology tool that allows your students to be engaged in your lesson. It's a lot like having sticky notes online. That's why I explain it to my teachers that come to see me on this. All right, so before we get started, I'm going to show you how I used it in the whole group, just as an engagement tool. The kids weren't necessarily doing anything with it, but it allowed them to be engaged. I just taught early European explorers, which is super boring. I'm not even going to lie. We just got off animals. They're loving talking about the alligator eating things. I don't know why, the alligator is always a big one for them. But then we talk about like John Cabot, and it's just straight downhill for third graders' brains. So I had to find a way for them to get engaged and understand the content. And they have to understand that the explorers came from Europe. You can see that. And they were looking for India. My third graders don't even know that Georgia is our state half the time. I'm like, guys, what state do we live in? Grovetown. No, but close, you know? And so I had to make them understand that there's different countries, and some of them are across the ocean. So by doing this, we talked in whole group, and we're like, okay, well, where's Christopher Columbus from? And we zoomed really close in so they could see his hometown was on the ocean. It was a coastal town. And then we would put our pin there so that they could remember it when we went back. And each day we went and did different explorers. And this is a new Padlet tool. I didn't know Padlet had maps as well. So just incorporating anything you can when you're talking about the Georgia regions in 3rd grade. Zooming in, we talked a lot about Savannah. Where I'm at, not a lot of my kids get the opportunity to travel. I'm in a lower economic school, so a lot of them haven't even left our county, which is sad to me because I grew up traveling. So I have to remember that they don't know what the beach looks like maybe. So you can take them to the beach on Google or Earth or this Padlet so you can keep your sticky notes on the place. All right, next would be as a small group engagement tool. I know you've seen your kids look at each other like this when you ask them to find a partner. They're always doing one of these to someone. I'm like, guys, I haven't even told you. I'm going to choose your partner for you in a minute. So in the small group setting, I just let them work together, again, using it more like sticky notes in this sense. So if we look, this was the fun one, Georgia Habitats and the animals, and they had to go in and put a plant or animal found in that region and why they lived in that region. How come an alligator can't live in the mountains? Well, it's too cold. We talked about that a lot. Now, if you look, 99% of them, I actually think all of them chose animals. Plants were not their jam. But what I liked was they could put their group members' names and then they could comment. So Maddie and Orion Julia, the black bear can survive here. It can climb trees with its sharp claws. And then they could go back and comment if they wanted to. So this one is a favorite for them. They love when they can have the different columns. And then if they mess up, they can drag and drop their answers somewhere else. But this was a good collaboration tool and it saved me time. I didn't want every group coming up and presenting their animal because I have some kids that will talk for the entire 25 minutes and some kids that will get up there and talk like this. And nobody can hear them, right? And then as an independent, this is probably my favorite way to use it. When I'm out, I normally get our para as a sub or someone in the school that can just cover the class for a while. I've been out 2 days this past month doing some field hours, and so using Padlet as their independent work resource helped me a lot not have to prepare worksheet upon worksheet upon worksheet, because it used to be in the past when I had subs, I'd come back to 15 different piles of worksheets and half of them are missing every which way, and it makes my room a mess. It stresses me out. I'm very type A. I like to know where my things are. I don't want all these different assignments laying around, right? So instead, I was just gone for like 2 hours, and during that time was math. So I posted all of their assignments. This is their must-do list, what they had to get done, and then their can-do, they can go. They watched the video, and then I gave them 3 questions to answer just on this. Now, what I really love about this is I had to make it where I had to approve their answers. So it wasn't posted automatically like normal, because Micah and Maddie up here, these are my 2 highest students in my class. Whereas like Bailey was gone for like 2 weeks during this unit. She probably didn't know the answer and she will copy theirs any chance she gets. So I didn't want them to be able to copy that. I wanted to use this as a formative assessment to see, okay, what do they actually know, right? So it sent it right to my email, and I love it when I'm at like doctor's appointments because you're sitting in the waiting room not doing anything anyways. You might as well check and make sure they're doing their stuff. And it allowed me to hold them accountable, which is part of that classroom management piece as well. Now, if you wanted to, you could provide students with sentence stems if they needed it, things like that. All right, so now you're going to be a student, and you can either scan it on your phone, it works on your phone, or you can type the code in if you want. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to just answer this question. We're going to pull it up, and you're going to see how it allows you to see it as soon as people comment.
Can you go back? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my fault. I'm getting ahead of myself. You can get up and get closer if you need to.
I think I just need a new phone.
There we go. There we go. Oh gosh.
Alright, is there anyone else that still needs to type it? Or can I pull it up? You type it. That's okay. Are we all there? Yeah, okay. And you can make your own post or you can comment on mine, either way. 30 seconds, put your answers in, if you don't mind. Alright, so while you're finishing up, I see a lot of using Google Classroom and Google Docs, which is a great use of technology as well. And with Padlet, you can just push it right into their Google Classroom so they don't have to scan a QR code and stuff. That's what I do for my kids, and they don't have to create an account. Even though it posts as anonymous, I just have them write in the title their name, so I don't have to, do that extra time to make them do an account. They find it way easier. Just type their name than trying to log into another website on top of that. So with this, a lot of you haven't used Padlet yet. If you want to use Padlet, just pick, one subject, one day a week or something to try it. Don't try to overwhelm yourself and use it in every single subject. But you can see after doing it how easy it is for your kids to just press the plus button and create a Padlet post for themselves, right? Now in kindergarten and stuff, I know like a lot of them aren't typing sentences yet, which is scary, trying to figure out, well, how am I going to use technology when my kids can't even spell? But a way I found using it with some of my lower groups was we came up with an answer together in small group, and maybe I asked all of my small groups the same question, and then I put it in for myself just as a place to take notes. So I can take annotated notes as I'm working with small groups. All right, now you are going to try and make one. And I'm going to be here to answer questions. We're going to work through it together. So if you'll just pull up Padlet.com on your computers or your phone, it might be easier to make one on your computer. I'm actually going to show you how you log in and everything like that. All right, when you are on this screen, put your hands on top of your head. Is anyone not on the screen? That's what I use with my kids a lot. Put your hands on top of your head. It's a really quick way to look, see, okay, they're there, and who do I need to help? So you can go ahead and click sign up for free, and then the fastest way to do it is just click sign with Google and type in your Georgia Southern stuff. Okay, I'm gonna give everyone 2 minutes because it's gonna make you go to my Georgia Southern and do that thing where you have to approve yourself, logging in, all those extra steps, and I'm gonna log in as well. Alright, when you're there, put your hands on top of your head. When you've made an account, made you log into Georgia Southern, sorry. That single sign-on thing is my least favorite thing by far, because half the time I don't even know where my phone is to go find it to sign on. Alright, it's extremely simple to make a Padlet. So just click make a Padlet up in the corner. Now, the map is what I showed you earlier with the explorers. The shelf is the one that had the different columns, and then the wall is just like having a sticky note wall. So think about what you're working on in the classroom right now, or maybe your big unit that you're working on, right, Dr. Cropper, since there's no more FTPA, one big unit. Okay, so click wall, and it'll pop up. You can change the background. I'm just gonna give you like 2 minutes to explore. I don't wanna waste your time on it. You can create a title. So my kids are about to learn animal adaptations. We got the switch back. We're finally done with the explorers after slowly rowing through that. And then I like to put my question in the description for my kids. So I normally just have one quick question and use it as a ticket out the door and an engagement tool, whichever one. And then once you have that, again, you can go in and change your wallpaper, your font. Down here is where I was talking about require approval, where it emails you before your kids can post, and then you just go in and click accept, and then it shows it. Once you click next, your kids will be all set to start posting. So again, I'm just gonna give you like 2 minutes just to play around with it. You can always, if you have questions, see me after or email me later. When you're done exploring, put your hands on top of your head and we'll move on. If you're not done, you have 1 more minute. Alright, let's go ahead can exit out now. And we're done exploring with Padlet on our own. We're gonna kind of get to the end of this and go ahead and wrap it up. Alright, so in closing, my best advice to you is just find a healthy balance. Don't try to be all technology, all worksheets. It's not gonna work. Your kids need that handwritten stuff. They need to know how to write handwritten. They don't need to do every single piece of your day technology, or else it's not really going to be that engaging anymore if they're on it all the time, right? And then also, it's going to be trial and error, especially those first 3 years. That first year, I mean, no matter how prepared I thought I was, Dr. Crawford was my supervisor. I had a great experience here. I got to my first year teaching and I was hit with a train. Like, there's nothing you can do other than have experience to be prepared for that first year. And that's not to scare you. It's okay if you don't do everything perfectly. If you don't win Teacher of the Year your first year, get all 4s on your TEKS, it's not going to happen, you know? You just have to be realistic with yourself that there is going to be days where it doesn't work, and that's okay. There's still days with my kids we try something new technology and it is a complete failure. And we just come back to it the next day and start over. And then reach out to your coworkers. The best teachers you have are going to be the ones you surround yourself with, you know. Maybe don't go next door to that person that's been teaching like a month longer than you. Maybe find someone that's been there a while because they've already been at the school. They know the expectations of your administration. Even if, you know, they're not the world's best teacher, go and reach out to your coworkers. And then, real quick, does anyone have questions about Padlet before we finish up that? We do have to take like a little survey in just a minute. Any questions about what we talked about tonight?